Good morning, everyone. It is Tuesday. Time for a cup of coffee. Talk about some lighters. Hopefully discuss the relative efficiencies of Zippo and Cygnus lighters in comparison to each other. Hello, Zippo Daily Fix. Glad that you are with us today. Excuse me. Hopefully we are joined shortly by Dylan DePie and maybe even Gavin Lannon, as Dylan's comment on yesterday's video is what prompted the topic for this live stream. Hoping I can get over here and find it so that I can read it to you. And I'll go ahead and screenshot this because I'm going to have to refer to it again, I'm sure. So Dylan's comment was, I don't get your interest in these aluminum block lighters. They're made from cheap materials and are butt ugly blocks. The knurled pattern on some of the rollers would give me the heebie-jeebies to use, like the ribs on some vacuum cleaner cords. Reusable Petrol lighters are maintenance enough. Who wants to be bothered with a flint tensioner? Well, I don't suppose that any of us want to be bothered with one. Excuse me. But we've got a flint tension system in both lighters, so I'm not sure what Dylan's point was on that. And I'm also not sure what his point was about the aluminum block lighters being butt ugly blocks. I mean, I get that unembellished, or even perhaps, if you had a Cygnus lighter that just came in like a brushed aluminum, that might not be all that special either. But if you look at the finishes on the Cygnus lighters, and I know that not all aluminum block lighters have such variety, but just here in this video we have at least 4 different colors. Actually, I would say at least 5, because there are a couple that are kind of a rose gold or champagne tone. Excuse me. I apologize for my throat this morning. Anyway, nowadays with Zippos you have all kinds of finishes that they have possible because of the 540 wrap, and I know they've had other coatings for a long time, but for the longest time, the only finishes that you got on a Zippo were variations on a chrome-plated brass case. So the chrome could be high polish, the chrome could be brush finish, but even, I'd say until probably the I don't know. That was really the only finishes for a long time. Variations on high polish and brush. So you weren't going to get a Zippo that was in a different color, where at least the versatility of the aluminum material that was used for the Cygnus lighters, and you have the ability to anodize that and manipulate that into all kinds of different colorways. It's one reason why this emerald green model is one of my favorite. I'd have a hard time parting with that lighter. I think I paid somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 bucks for the lot that this lighter was in, but there were a whole lot more lighters in it, so I'm sure that when it all came out, I didn't pay anything for this lighter that stayed in my collection. I missed it the first time around, and the seller relisted it. I just forgot to bid. Got a hold of them and they relisted it. Seems like for another 7-day auction, so I had to wait a whole other week to see if I was going to get this lighter, and I did pay more for it, for that group, than I would have if I had bought it the first time around, because nobody bid the first time around, and the second time I did have a bidder competing with me. So no advertisement or other embellishment on this one, and yet it's probably my favorite simply because of the color. The emerald with the gold tone accents. Yes, I would agree with you there, Jeremy, that any solid block of metal is probably more desirable as far as the construction of the lighter, simply because you got less moving parts that way. And the aluminum block Cygnuses are no different. I guess there is some, I hear what you're saying about it not being cheap. And I don't typically think of it as cheap either, but it is light, so maybe that's where that comes from. It will tarnish and corrode somewhat, so maybe not quite so desirable, but just about any metal is going to, left to the environment and, moisture, wind, it's going to suffer some kind of damage over time. So you can have aluminum get a sort of a scaly finish. You see that on a lot of aluminum block lighters. Maybe not as prevalent on these, because these are all pretty nice lighters. Even you can see this painted lighter has all kinds of wear to it. Scratches, scuffs, and all that, and yet the embellishment of the painting still very much intact and makes the lighter very attractive. Of course, you have painting on Zippo, so I wouldn't give the Cygnus any hand up on that one. Yeah, in that case, there's a good chance, ZDF, that it's probably silver plated, or maybe even, are you sure it wasn't sterling? Did you look it over for hallmarks? Usually if the lighter was made in England, that's going to be, or is it made in England, or just that it was sold there? But the English hallmark is going to be that the lion. But a roll of gas, that would have been, that's quite a bit later, so I don't know about the hallmarks on a roll of gas. Yeah, it might be silver plated. I know that with the silver plating, they weren't required to disclose that. So there were some, I'm trying to remember the manufacturer. I had a table lighter that was a figure or column, real tall, and it had some hallmarks on it, and one of those hallmarks was for silver plating. But when I was reading about those hallmarks, I think that was basically a voluntary hallmark. They don't have to be marked if they're just silver plated, like they do if they're higher content of silver or gold or whatever the precious metal might have been. Made in Switzerland, yeah. Yeah, and I'm drawing a blank. I'm not an expert on Dunnhills. You know, they were made in Switzerland, and there was Dunnhill London, Dunnhill Paris, but I don't know if they actually made lighters in London and Paris, or whether they just marketed them in those countries or cities from being made elsewhere. Probably a combination of both would be my guess. Let me refer back to my screen capture of Dylan's comment. See if there's anything else there I need to lay out about this. The butt ugly, it's made from cheap materials and are butt ugly blocks. I kind of laughed at that because, you know, there's not anything real exciting about just a plain Zippo. Maybe it's not a butt ugly block, but it's just kind of a plain rectangle. This is one of my favorite Zippos, by the way, that I don't know if I've ever actually done a video on this one or not. I think I did do a video on it because I talked a little bit about why I bought it and about the inscription on it, but I didn't explain exactly. Jack was a word that my dad liked to use, and if any of my uncles ever saw these videos, they would know exactly what I'm talking about, as would a few others. But if you pissed my dad off, he was going to call you Jack. So this lighter doesn't get used anymore. I bought it with ideas on giving it to somebody, and it was brand new at the time. It's obviously been used a good deal now. Sold the box that it came in a couple years ago just because I needed money. But this was a sentimental purchase. This isn't a lighter that my father gave me or anything like that. This was a lighter that I purchased because it reminded me of him, and with the idea of giving it to one person in particular. But now, who knows? Maybe it stays in my collection. This one will never get sold, though, simply because of its connection and the way it reminds me of my old man. But once again, that's not the most revolutionary or exciting of things sitting in your hand. It's just a plain piece of chrome plated brass. Which, as we were saying, as Zippo Daily Fix pointed out, not sure which lighters I have where here. I think I just filled this one up. But as Zippo Daily Fix pointed out, with the solid block construction, then provides a lot more sturdiness. You're not going to crank on that snuffer and twist it sideways like I have on a Zippo. It's real easy when you're trying to do more than one thing at a time. You can get a Zippo crooked in your hands and bend that hinge. I've done it on more than one occasion. You won't do that with a Cygnus. Even if you put some pressure on it, you're not going to bend that solid snuffer. I have seen them bent, but they're not going to be bent with just your normal exertion from your hands being put on them. Maybe if you put it in a vise or somehow crank it really hard sideways, you could. But like I said, not just from manipulating it with one hand. Are you talking about, oh, you're talking about Dunnhills selling fast and for a good bit of money? Yeah, I'm with you. I've sold several lift arm lighters. Well, I shouldn't say several, a few. Enough to be acquainted. A couple of solid silver lift arm lighters. One that was a sport model with the windscreen. That was one of the more expensive lighters that I've sold, somewhere in the $700 range. The only one that was more expensive was the Zippo with the Town and Country geese on it. Gavin Lannon also got a chuckle out of Dylan's comment last night. And I'm not sure, that sounds like, I'm not sure what all that was about, the knurled pattern and being like the cords on vacuum cleaners. It sort of sounds like Dylan was describing the way people talking about fingernails on chalkboards. Those kinds of textures may affect him, like the fingernails on a chalkboard would affect people's ears. I don't know. But I would contend that you got the same kind of maintenance as far as the flint goes with either one. Whether you have your flint spring that you're dealing with down here, or your flint spring that you're dealing with here with your thumb. But you have the possibility of needing a screwdriver to undo the Zippo. If you don't tighten them down too much, then you shouldn't, but somebody could tighten it down, then you need it. Where if the Cygnus, you shouldn't need a tool to manipulate it. And it's not been my experience that these Cygnus need to be taken apart and cleaned up or oiled or anything like that. I don't think there's really any more maintenance involved with a Cygnus than you do with a Zippo. And I would also point out that where if the Zippo flint seizes in the tube and it decides to be one of those, or you just catch it at the right time in the degradation process where it is hard rather than soft and still lodged and won't come out. I've had some Zippo inserts that I had to give up on. Hadn't been very many, but there have been some where the only way you could really do it would be to remove the rivet that's holding the file wheel so that you would have clearance for the flint to come out of there. Where with the Cygnus, if you've got flint stuck in this tube, really no problem. You can back that out of there, take the entire carriage out, and then if you still needed to get completely through there, you can always pull your roller off just by removing that screw. I did break one of those. I broke the original one that was in the green lighter, and then had to wait a while until I could find a gold tone one to replace it with. That was one of the first in my personal collection, that green lighter. Sort of what made me decide to go ahead and start collecting these. I've sold, well, I guess I sold one, the Remington Rand advertiser. I wish I still had it. I bought it 5 years or so ago and sold it before I considered myself a collector of these particular lighters. You will need to adjust your flint tension sometimes, but nothing to it, just a little bit more of a roll on the thumb lever. What town and country Zippos do you have? Zippo Daily Fix. Yeah, to me that's the coolest thing is the flint tension mechanism, and that's why I'll collect any of them. You see this one I believe is branded Le Briquette et Cie. That one is, well, that one is branded Cygnus on the fuel screw, but I replaced that fuel screw. This one didn't have a fuel screw when I bought it. But I'm certain that it was a Cygnus. If not, it could have been branded otherwise, like some of these others. This one is marked Cornwall Slimline, Japan. Showed you the Le Briquette et Cie, and then this one is marked Prince. So I've got 3 or 4 that are branded otherwise than Cygnus, but so we call those Cygnus adjacent. Just found my second short advertiser. You guys probably saw those videos in the last week. The other one was gold tone, or is gold tone, with Victory Optical and the logo in 2 color, where the one I found last week is just the name, Southern Motors Inc., in 1 color. Both still cool. Yeah, that's really cool. I like all those, and they were, I guess you would say they were outdoor themed, or not really sports, more outdoor, I guess. The animals and the lily pad is a really cool one. I don't remember. I think there were 6 of them that were original, and then a couple of them they did away with, which I think one of those was the geese, but they added others. But yeah, that was it was a lighter that was very used. Well, I wouldn't say very used. The paint was still all there. There was some damage to the surface of the paint, but still the majority of it there. I think I sold that lighter for, well, I know I sold the lighter for $789. And I knew it was worth quite a bit when I bought it, unidentified in a small group of lighters. But I didn't know that it would bring quite that much. I listed it for $999.99. Buy it now with a make offer option, and it sat there for maybe a couple of weeks. I don't even think it was that long. But I got several offers, and some of them that were pretty close to the offer I ended up accepting. But yeah, that one was definitely good enough, and got my money back and some more. Oh, now that would be cool. I've never owned any of the Zippo table lighters, but especially the bar crop. Those are really cool, and I guess there are so many different variations of it. But that would be really cool to have the Town and Country, any of them, but especially the lily pad on a table ladder. Those things look so big to me in pictures, and then when I've seen them in person, which has been few and far between. I don't recall if I've ever even seen one in an antique store or vintage mall, those kind of places around here. The first place I remember seeing one, though, was in one of the displays up at the National Lighter Museum in Guthrie, Oklahoma. First time I went up there to see Ted Ballard. And yeah, you know, they're not that much bigger than a regular Zippo lighter, but they look so giant in the pictures. Haven't done a update on this lighter recently either. The Majestic Views Virgin River Zion version 2. This lighter I got as a gift from Marlboro for National Day of the Cowboy, and decided to use it. And it does have some scratches. I have not purposely put any blemishes on them, but it has sustained them. And you can even see some spots where I wonder whether, or exactly how thick that wrap is, because it looks like you can see metal through the image, where there have been some nicks here on some of these corners. Just one or two, not horrible. I really like the 540 process. This is the only one that I've had, and I've got my eye on a few others. I would definitely not mind owning some of those cannabis leaf designs. But, you know, I would say it's holding up fairly well for what I would have expected for a lighter that, you know, hadn't been in my pocket every day, but it's been used a good amount. And at some point it'll find its way back into my pocket. Did a video on this lighter sometime in the last year because I sort of straightened out the windscreen, which I'm not big on yanking around or bending metal on Zippos, but this is one that it's a little bit difficult to get out of there, and so over time it keeps getting pinched in, which is why we reformed it. And well, find something that I can pull that out with. See if I can find a wire real quick. So like I said, I know I made a video for reshaping that windscreen, but I don't know if I've ever done a video on this lighter other than that, like just a regular show and tell. This is one that I bought years ago. I was still living over in Midwest City, because it had my name in it, or my name on it. And our friend Bill Calkins, who was with us last week, I don't know what the number is now, he's always showing off his Zippo collection that are engraved with his name. So either Bill or Wild Bill, or maybe a William or a Billy, and some other combinations of initials. But that's always a worthwhile theme for a collection, is lighters that already have your name on them. Hello, Naphtha. Glad that you're with us today. Yeah, ZDF, I have another one of these that is in my display over in the Mesta Park headquarters, the rotating Zippo display. But that's one reason why I decided to use this one when I got it, was because I already had the other one and hadn't used it, just, took the sticker off and removed the flint. But yeah, they're really cool lighters, and it's an eye catcher for sure. I've always got lighters in my pocket. I'm always pulling a different lighter out, and very few of them get my old lady's attention, but this one did immediately. And she didn't care anything about the Cygnus. I was all excited when I found it last week. And she also didn't understand, didn't seem to make any difference to her that it had that advertising on it. It was just an odd little lighter. But yeah, that Majestic View, that is an eye catcher for sure. What's up, Eastwa? I'm glad that you have joined us. Yeah, I would agree with you. It's hard to, but I will say this too, I haven't had any of the others in my hand. I've seen some of them that Chuck Riley has posted on the Riley's 66 Facebook page. There was one, he'll always, or not always maybe, but often, he'll post a lighter over there and say, hey, this is up on my website. And one of them was that, I think it may be a glow in the dark even. It looks like sprinkles on a donut. That was a really cool one too. So what are you working on nowadays, Eastwa? Still the same, huh? Do you have another full-time job, Eastwa, that you then are doing vintage lighter content in your spare time, or are you like me? Are you somewhere more in the line of a retired person who maybe has a full-time job that just doesn't pay very well? Are you saying no other job, only lighters from now on? That's kind of the way I feel about it, although I handle a few other topics here and there, but the microphone, and it may have, I don't know, it looked like it may have knocked me completely offline. So you guys let me know if you can hear me again now. I'm not even sure if I can restart this. Going back in to where I am monitoring it at. Okay, so maybe we're all good now. Naphtha says he can hear. Yeah, I'm sorry guys, I received a phone call and I thought I got it hung up, but that phone, when a phone call comes through, it hadn't always knocked it off, but that's not the first time that it's screwed things up. So hopefully we have it all fixed now. I can't remember what we were talking about at the time. Whether it was the Majestic Views. Oh, maybe it was the custom Zippos. I know that a lot of those that Riley 66 and Chuck Riley does are custom printed, where they were basically made up for him by Zippo. But that one with the donut sprinkle design, I think that may be a glow in the dark thing. I don't think that one was his design. How are things in Tulsa today, Naphtha? I had also mentioned Eastwa says that I'd asked him if he has a full-time job. He said no, only lighters, that he used to work in interior and graphic design. I don't know if that part, if that was before the microphone went out or not, but my previous work was with the U.S. Postal Service. I spent 25 years there, and I hope that your graphic design, that sounds at least like a creative kind of way to make a living. The U.S. Postal Service was mind-numbing. There was nothing joyful or rewarding in that work at all. Just a paycheck. Yeah, I apologize. I'm going to have to figure out I don't know what I can do, if I can turn that phone from receiving phone calls while I'm on the live stream or not. Are we talking about a street legal mini bike? Pocket rocket kind of thing? Crotch rocket, whatever they call it? What's up, Asriel? I'm glad that you've joined us today. Hopefully you didn't have to put up with the absence of the audio there. We talked a little bit earlier about the function of a Zippo compared to the function of a Cygnus lighter. That both of them could be just boring little chunks of metal. But you know, the Zippo, they really didn't have much variation at all up until the 1980s, and really until more recently. I guess they did a lot of painting of lighters there in the 90s and stuff. And maybe you would even consider like the 540 wrap, maybe that's technically some kind of paint, I don't know. But with the aluminum block lighters, there were other companies that anodized these for color purposes other than Cygnus, but Cygnus certainly did enough of that themselves. You can see the green, you see the gold, you can see the champagne color, silver tone. I have seen blue, and it was actually on a lighter similar to this with the dragon or maybe Egyptian motif, I can't remember, but one of those with a painted panel on it. But my favorites are the advertisers. I like the advertisers a lot. Plenty of versatility, and you know, sometimes it's just on one panel, sometimes it's on two, sometimes it's on three. It's hard to keep track of what I got and where here. This is, other than the short one that I found last week, this was my most recent, and it's sort of a champagne tone, but it's got advertising on 3 panels. front, back, and then the front side. Yeah, the audio was out earlier. What's up, Sean? Glad that you're with us. So Asriel, when you say Zippo was all around lighter and then now it's like Harley Davidson, you're saying that the quality has gone downhill? You know, I don't have a lot of complaints about Zippos. You can say that it's windproof. I've talked about this before. And maybe it is windproof as far as the flame going out, but being able to light what you need to light while that flame is dancing around, even if the flame doesn't extinguish, if you can't catch up with it to get what you need to light up, to hold there, for that flame to hold still long enough for that to happen, then it doesn't really matter whether it stays lit or not. Our friend Pyro Lighter posted a short a couple weeks ago where he was out by a campfire, it looked like. Okay, so you're saying it's become a classic. It was the only thing simple enough it can be compared to Bic. Yeah, I forgot of your affinity for Bic lighters. Excuse me. But I was also pretty pleased when I had to send the lighter back. I don't have that one with me. I do have a repaired Zippo here in my pocket, and I meant to have this down on the table when we started, but I was using it outside right before I started the stream. But this is the lighter that Gavin sent me that had my initials on it. So I guess there's my collection of Zippos or lighters with my name on them. One with Joe, the other with JDH, my initials. And I guess you could throw the Jack lighter in there if you wanted to. I don't know if my dad was ever pissed off enough to call me Jack. I don't think he did, so probably that one would not apply to me. But my experience with the work that the Zippo Repair Clinic does, I don't have a complaint about them like a lot of people do. I've been very pleased with the repaired lighters that I've used, and then the couple that I sent back myself. So there's plenty to like about Zippo, but there's plenty to like about other lighters as well. And for some reason, there's another Cygnus with 2-panel advertising. For some reason, people really like to put down other lighters and really like to build up Zippo sometimes. And I don't have any problem building up Zippo or any other brand where it's warranted. But I don't really like tearing them down either. I kind of prefer to see the unique, or the way that each one is more efficient in this way or the other. I just find them all interesting. I think it's interesting too when you start collecting lighters like this by a particular brand, how you will see different variations in the parts, like a fluted roller here on this plain model. If you have one that doesn't light on the first time, then you might want to tighten up that flint tension thumb roller, because the Cygnus will usually light up every time. But you can see there are variations. A lot of these are just knurled or hobnail, whatever you would call it. But then there are others that are fluted. So I don't know if those are different time frames, or if one was from the basic lighter and others from, you know, maybe on something that somebody paid a little bit more for. I don't know. There you can see, that's not the one. This print. I said earlier that I had one where the snuffer had been bent, and you can see it. See right there where somebody has torqued on that snuffer, but it wasn't side to side. It's like it was open and then they tried to pull it even further open. But you're not going to do that with one hand. At least most people aren't. Maybe Arnold Schwarzenegger, somebody that can tear phone books in half, but it's not going to be an issue for most of us. Yeah, I agree with that, Sean. A lot of times it does have to do with what's nostalgic. Asriel has mentioned that before, that for him it's very nostalgic to see the Marlboro brand on those disposable lighters that we were messing around with a month or two ago. And a lot of people have a nostalgic feel for a Zippo, even if they never had one or used one. Maybe, yeah, it really does sometimes. Flip-top lighter equals Zippo. See that in plenty of eBay listings as well. Sellers that should educate themselves a little better, especially when a lighter might be clearly marked on the bottom with another name and they've still got it listed as a Zippo. Yeah, I don't know the first movie that a Zippo was in, but being used so prominently during World War II, I think really gave it a kickstart. Not that it wasn't a good lighter, and not that it wouldn't have succeeded anyway, but you know, when you talk about World War II era lighters or service lighters, lighters that were issued to troops, the Zippo Black Crackle is the number one that most people think about before you think of any of the other flip tops or the Ronson wartime models or the Dunnhills service lighter or any of those. You think of the Black Crackle. And, you know, we talk about the Town and Country and some of those other Zippos that truly are rare, scarce. I don't know what the technical term would be, but I wouldn't put Black Crackle Zippos in that category. They bring a premium, and they should, but there are a ton of them out there. A ton. Yeah, that's cool, Jeremy. Any kind of, I've come across a couple. I can't remember. I had one that was unmarked that I did a video on. I can't remember if I'd had another actual Black Crackle, but yeah, you see them in listings all the time. That's kind of one of the lighters that I really would like to acquire, is a Park Sherman Black Crackle. Love to be able to do a video on one of those, but the Zephyr, the Neff, oh man, I can't even, there are a million names, but there are some that are even pretty prominent. The one that we had that was, I think it had an aluminum case and sort of a mosaic type blue finish on it. That was maybe a World War II era lighter, but not a service lighter. But that same company made Black Crackles. There were a ton of them that made Black Crackles, and all of them are very, you know, obviously not as sought after as a Zippo in most people's eyes, but they all have value and they're all cool, nostalgic old relics that hopefully before it's all done I have a chance to show them all off here on the channel. Yeah, I agree with that. ZDF about World War II was the main reason. I can't remember though. I mean, I'm trying to remember a movie. There was a movie that, I mean, obviously there's been a lot of movies where they used Zippos. I remember seeing them in some of those Vietnam era movies, using them to, like, you know, throw fuel on a village or something, and then they just throw the lighter into the middle of it. But I don't know what the first time that a Zippo was in a movie would have been. Yeah, I think I've seen a picture of that, ZDF. It's a Lady Bradford or Lady Barbara. I can't remember what the name of that. Is it Lady Bradford? Yeah, Lady Bradford. Um, there are folks that will post those kind of pictures over in the different Facebook lighter groups, Zippo addicts and the like, and I'm sure that's where I've seen that. A flamethrower tank was even called a Zippo, huh? If it made fire, it was a Zippo. Yeah, so I don't remember what movies I saw that in. There were a lot of them there in the 80s and 90s. Full Metal Jacket and um, Platoon. Those two stand out in my mind. Full Metal Jacket was a really good one. Die Hard, maybe he has a scene where he's up in the is he up in the roof or something? Up in the ceiling? Having to use a lighter for some reason or another? I can't remember. I saw that movie on a double date at a drive-in movie theater not too far from where I'm at. I believe I'm right here in Deep Deuce of Oklahoma City right now. And this was, can't remember the name of that drive-in theater. This would have been the fall of 1988. And yeah, we saw Die Hard and I think Cocktail. I think that's right. Yeah, Air Vent. There you go. What are you saying about Greece, Sean? What's up, Dylan? Hoobla doobla. Now I haven't even got a chance. You can see it still right here with me. So I haven't even got a chance to put it over there in the rotating Zippo display and take a look at it. So I'll definitely be doing that at some point. I didn't have any water over there for a couple of weeks, and my landlord showed up one day last week, or actually messaged me and arranged for me to meet her over there, and so I've at least got water back over there now. My water had been out since before Christmas. But this is I don't know what to do with this, Dylan. Really am kind of torn because, you know, I mean, it's not like I've got any kind of connection with whaler ships or anything like that. But this is a really cool lighter. And like I said, it's even crossed my mind that maybe I should start an ultralight collection. We'll see. But, you know, The West Virginia lighter, that one's a little bit rough. I definitely need to acquire one of those lighters. Like I said, for the reasons that I told you in that comment. But that particular design, not in the ultralight, not in the same way with the ultralight panels, but there are park lighters with that West Virginia motto on them too. Anyway, I am still open to trading it, but probably not for that one. Yeah, I know that's one reason why I didn't sweat it too much uh, with my landlord, because she's got several other properties and I figured she was up to her elbows in it. We got down here to like 4 one day. The 4 degrees was the high one day, and 8 degrees was the high the other day. And it didn't get above freezing for about 3 or 4 days. So, you know, I wasn't. I was staying somewhere else anyway, and she seemed to have plenty on her plate, so it's all good now. Yeah, I know, but yeah, and that crossed my mind too when I saw 3 ultralights there in your picture. But the one that really got my attention was the West Virginia one, and there was just too much damage to it. I don't remember if it was the front or back panel. Actually, I think it was the front panel. I don't know how I missed that in the first picture. But anyway, yeah, like I said, I'm not saying no altogether. And something else to consider, Dylan, is I would be interested in acquiring any of these plastic boxes that also, not just the cream color, but the black ones, for many a year, because they work the best in my display. So keep that in mind too. If you got any of these plastic boxes, that's something I would consider trading for as well. They used to use Zippos in. Oh, you're talking about the Grease movie, yeah. Kaniki. Yeah. My wife's a big fan of that show. My daughter as well. So I have seen Grease a time or two. I had not. I don't guess I've seen it here in the last few years. Hadn't really paid attention to what they were using. I've already made my case, Dylan, for why Cygnuses are no more butt ugly than a Zippo. A plain Zippo, which, like I said, the finish, when it came to Zippo up until, what, the early 80s or late 70s, you had two choices of finish. You had high polished chrome and brush chrome. At least with the aluminum block Cygnus lighters, most of them are ribbed, so some kind of embellishment rather than just a plain block or plain butt ugly rectangle. But they also have an advantage when it comes to the flint tension mechanism, because it's a lot easier if you have a degraded flint that has lodged itself in there. It's a lot easier to remove that flint spring carriage. And I just dropped my I don't know where it went, but hope it didn't go in my coffee. The flint dropped out of there and went somewhere. But if you have to, you can remove this screw, and by removing the file roller, then you have a straight shot to clear that. Where you're going to have to remove a rivet if you get one really lodged in a Zippo. And if I cannot locate that flint, then I guess I'm probably not going to finish that coffee. I think I would see it if it was right here. It's a red flint. Shouldn't have got off too far. Oh well. Good morning, Hev. Glad that you have joined us. Anybody else who is in the chat and hadn't said hey yet, go ahead and say hello. Let us know where you have joined us from. Hit that thumbs up like button. Register your presence here in the stream today. Looking through my box here to see if I had another flint to put in there. And I know I've got some somewhere. I carried a ton of them over here. Those red tinted flints that our friend Robert Hollingsworth sent us. And I'll go ahead and put another one back in that Cygnus. Although I had just received this lighter, or just bought it last week, and fueled it up, it's like we've talked about before. If there is one negative about a Cygnus lighter, it is the fuel efficiency. It just won't last more than, I don't know, probably 4 days at most. Seems like typically it's more like 3 days or so. So while I did fuel this one up the other day, it's already run out of fuel. But like I said, no surprise, that was 4 or 5 days ago. I did rob a paper gasket off what I think was an older Cygnus in order to put on this one, because this fuel screw didn't have one when I got it. Really intended to list this lighter last month, and then I got distracted doing other things at Christmas time. I gave away the other lighter, the USS Camden loss-proof lighter. Guy got a hold of me and said he'd been on that ship. I forget when. He gave me a date range there and was offering to buy it. So I just went ahead and sent it to him. Any of you guys in the military know what these engravings are on the back of this one? I'm sure those were certain missions or deployments or something. Although the maiden voyage must have been on a new ship or something, because Carrier Air Wing 7 had been around, I think, a good deal longer than that. And I just poured out my coffee for no reason. Looking for the flint, and then afterward I found it sitting over here underneath the camera. So there's the flint that was in there. You know, it's almost, sometimes I'm so absent-minded. It's like every time I go to do a repair video, I forget to remove the flint spring and screw until I've already started disassembling the mechanism. And the same thing with flint. When I'm screwing around with the flint mechanism in one, it's, for some reason, it always surprises me that flint drops out of there. No problem, Eastwall. Glad that you're back with us. Enjoyed watching your video the other day of, I can't remember now, did you say 2 years of collecting in 1 minute? That was a little eye-opening. And I believe you have a Cygnus table lighter, similar to these. I know you'd mentioned before that you'd just gotten a Cygnus lighter. I don't know if that was the one. But yeah, some very interesting lighters there on your shelves. Yeah, you never know, Sean. That's one reason why I keep showing them off. This is a really cool one. The painted logo on that one is really nice. Obviously, it's got some damage, but I paid, I think I paid $2 plus maybe like $5 shipping for this lighter. An eBay listing where this lighter literally sold for a couple of bucks. With all the wear, with all the engraving, in my mind, it's worth way more than that. And, you know, like I said, it's not like well, I kind of am. I'm doing a lot of stuff here that benefits charity, but I'm trying to make money too. So, you know, if I can, I've given away plenty of lighters because somebody showed an interest or because it was more sentimental to someone than it was to me. But, you know, I'm always looking to sell and make some money too, because I do like to eat. Are you talking about a pocket model or a table model, Iswa? Is the one you have a table model? I don't remember ever seeing a box for one of these. I did have a box for the plain silver tone lighter that I traded to our friend Friedrich's deal for the scrimshaw lighter. It had a knurled roller rather than the fluted, and it was brand new with the box. Had never been fueled or lit, it didn't look like. Where this one is well used. But I don't have boxes for any of these Cygnus that I have in my collection now. That was the only box that I had. Didn't I see a table model in your video as well? Was I wrong? Was that maybe a Le Briquette Etsy, or I thought I saw one of these in your 2 years of collecting in 1 minute. These are really good table lighters too. Really hold their fuel. Very efficient, igniting. Sometimes they'll be missing these little rubber feet. Both of these have them, but the one on this Brothers sewing machine advertiser has definitely been worn down. Both of these table lighters, when I got them, had considerable buildup, grime. They looked like they'd been used in a workshop. Both really good lighters though. I've got another one like this that is missing a few parts, and I owned a plain one a few years ago. I think those 4 are the only Cygnus table lighters that I've owned. Like I said, I had a Remington Rand advertiser. It was about like this plain one, only it had Remington Rand. I think it was on the back, may have been the front. And then I had another plain one like this that I traded to our friend David Ward on Facebook for a Waldorf lighter and another aluminum block Petrol lighter that was incomplete. But I really wanted that Waldorf lighter at the time, and I had duplicates of the silver tone Cygnus. So at the moment, if you count the Cygnus adjacent lighters like this Prince and the Cornwall, I believe they were all made in the same factory. I think I've got 17 of them. There's 5, 10, 15, no 18. I've got 18 of them. So I'm back up to 18 after trading the one away, but adding the Southern Motors Inc. short advertiser. Yeah, I think it's interesting too, like I was saying earlier, how the thumb rollers will be different on some. Some have fluted rollers, and the others are knurled or hobnail, whatever you would call it. But as opposed to Dylan calling them a butt ugly, what was it? What did he say? Butt ugly block. I don't think they're butt ugly at all. At least I don't recall seeing a Cygnus lighter that isn't embellished with either vertical ribs or a painted panel, or otherwise painted or the color. It still has the ribs as well, but obviously you got the variations of the color. I can't really explain it though, other than that, Dylan. What my interest in these aluminum block lighters is, it's sort of like that saying, the heart wants what the heart wants. I don't know. They're attractive lighters. They are effective, dependable. The only knock on them is the fuel economy. But you got that same knock with the Zippo. They're no worse off on fuel economy than a Zippo. Yeah, I looked that one up, Sean. The Southern Motors, and I couldn't determine exactly what that advertising is for. There are a couple of car dealerships that are in business right now that go by Southern Motors, but not, of course, everything is LLC nowadays. But there's one that was in Georgia, I think Springfield, Georgia, and purported to be in business since 1929. So it's a possibility that this could be that one at a time when they went by Southern Motors Inc. But yeah, I like it. I'm not a huge fan of using these simply because it is kind of a stretch. You don't have very good hold on this lighter to be spinning that wheel the way you need to spin it. It's just like a finger and a half. Where the full-size pocket models, I'm going to knock them all over here if I don't watch it. The full-size pocket models, you got a little bit better grip on here. A whole 3 fingers, part of 4. So like I said, I'm not a big detractor when it comes to Zippo, but I'm not a detractor when it comes to Cygnus at all. You find the mini, I don't know about you, Sean, I don't know what people have made fun of my hands for a long time. I'm not a exceptionally tall person. I'm 5'8", so I've always thought I was about average height. I never considered myself short either. But playing football, people used to always try to make fun of my hands and say I had small hands. I don't think I have small hands. I think I got short fingers. So, it is what it is. But whether they're small or just got short fingers, I think the dexterity that these old fingers no longer have is my biggest impediment to being able to use one of these comfortably. Would certainly not take up much space, and I would never take these advertising models and put them in my pocket. I'm not trying to scratch all the paint off of the advertisement or anything like that. That's too cool. But if I could use one, I would certainly be up to using one of these plain ones. But I haven't done it because it's just not comfortable to me. It's just not comfortable using one. Somebody, I think it was David Ward again, hit me up about trading for a Cygnus. And if somebody did want to trade, I'm holding on to both of these right now because they've got the different roller. Here you got 2 short ones. And one with maybe the fluted is the older. I've always thought that these big cursive logo Cygnus were the older one, where these that say Penguin and Cygnus to be the later. But I could be completely off on that. That's just my own impression. But if somebody did want to trade for one, I would be willing to possibly trade one of these. I don't know. Yeah, that's kind of what I like about them. The very first Cygnus that I ever acquired, that one that had Remington Rand advertising on it, it reminded me of a Dunnhill roller light. Just the look of it. I'd never owned a roller light at that point, but obviously they're both roller lighters. A little bit different with this one having the one-sided snuffer where the Dunnhills have the whole lid that comes up. But just on a, kind of rudimentary basis, they're not unsimilar. And then once you become acquainted with the Cygnus, well then it's got plenty to like. It's got plenty of features that, the spare flint compartment, this fuel screw is very hard to start for some reason. But the spare flint compartment in the flint screw, or in the fill screw, and then the thumb roller flint tension mechanism, which is not absolutely unique, but this style really is. You'll see similar ones in the Viscount and the Cupid, but where the mechanism is actually mounted to the body rather than resting on the inside like it is with those other two. And like I said, you'll find them with some other brand name on them, but I think they were all made in the same factory and then just marketed differently. Yeah, like I said, Sean, keep it in mind. I don't sell to the UK. I just ship to the US when it comes to what I've sold on eBay. But if we were to work out a trade, then we wouldn't have the same kind of constrictures put on us. In other words, if it doesn't make it, I'm not going to get a ding on eBay. So I'd be willing to take a chance with that on a trade, no doubt. So yeah, keep that in mind. Let me know if you think of anything. Especially if you like these shorter models. Looks like I've got 5 of the short ones. 2 are silver tone. Then this one, which is marked Super Cygnus, which I'd been told that the Super Cygnus was the auto variety, but this does not have the auto mechanism. But it does have a base plate similar to the few automatic Cygnuses that you can see listed on eBay right now. Or I say base plate, the engravings on the bottom. This symbol down here and whatever that other number. You see the patent number 364149 on most of them, but this one has another number. It's like number 3838 or something like that. Anyway, this one black anodized. With gold colored accents or gold toned accents. So that's the 5 small ones. And I think that's all the small ones that I've ever owned. Go ahead and fuel up this Majestic Views. And maybe go ahead and switch it out with one of these others and use it for a while. Any of you guys hard yes or no on Roncinol? I know Zippo Fanatic 77 Outdoors has mentioned in the past that he thinks it's a different mixture from the Zippo fuel, but I haven't seen any difference at all. I've been using them interchangeably for the last good while, and I haven't had any problem with it at all. There were some tornadoes back, was that Christmas weekend or New Year's weekend? Maybe Christmas weekend, but hit the southeastern part of Oklahoma, Sean, but it wasn't too bad, and it seems like there's been, later on, those storms moved east, and I don't remember whether it was Mississippi or Tennessee, but caused a lot of damage in some other states. And then there's been some storms since then, which we have had some tornadoes in Oklahoma. There was one day I think we had 4 already this year, but I don't think we got the major damage, the brunt of it, like some of the states, 2 or 3 states over to the east got. The Roncinol, the reason I bought this particular bottle, you know, let me go grab these bottles of Zippo fuel that you can get at Walmart, $1.99 at Walmart. That same small 4-ounce bottle at Winco is $3. Now, the bigger 12-ounce bottle you used to be able to get for that price per what you're getting it at Walmart. You ought to be able to get one for about $6. It's just 3 of these small bottles. But right now, when you can find those bigger bottles, it seems like on Amazon or anywhere else, smoke shops, local smoke shops, I think I paid like $8 or $9 for one of the bigger bottles of Zippo fuel. Where at Winco, they have the big bottle of Roncinol for like $4. So I don't know what the difference is. I don't know why one is so expensive and the other not. But even on Amazon lately, the big bottles of Zippo fuel are minimum $10. Maybe you get a couple of bottles for $18 or something like that. But it seems a little expensive, so that's one of the reasons why I had picked up the Roncinol and used it. That one's empty. But I pretty much just use what's available when I need to buy it. And I used to think that maybe the Roncinol was a cheaper product, but I think that a lot of times if you'll just let your lighter set for a minute, they both say the same contents, lighter petroleum distillate. Now, I understand that however those are being distilled, you know, there could be a vast difference. But I think Zippo claims they're the same product. And they're both, you know, you got Zippo Manufacturing Company, 33 Barber Street. I'm not sure if this has the address on it. Yeah, there you go, 33 Barber Street. So I don't know. I don't see a difference. They both work fine to me. I used to think that the Roncinol didn't work as well and was maybe a little bit more volatile. And I think I thought that because of fueling up Beatty jets and then them not wanting to work right off the bat like you wanted them to. But once you let that fuel volatility settle down a little bit, let some of the excess vapor evaporate, I don't see a difference. I think the Zippo fuel would have done the same thing if the lighter was prone to that kind of volatility. Bull brand, huh? I never heard of that one. Is that Sean, is that made in the UK? Does it seem to you like it smells any different, naphtha? Or you just maybe see a little bit of difference in the way they burn? You said 100 milliliters. So this is 118 millimeters, so, or milliliters. So what you're talking about would be about that size, Sean, that you're getting for $1. Okay, I don't even know what those are, Sean, or naphtha. What are pentanes and heptanes? I don't know either. I did see, I didn't watch the video, I just saw the thumbnail, that Zippo Fanatic 77 had a similar type. It looked like the same bottle, but it was a different brand. It was like a rip-off of Roncinol that he was saying absolutely do not use. And I've never put, naphtha or white gas or Coleman fuel or kerosene or gasoline, all these things that, I kind of, it seems like an interesting experiment. I just haven't had the wherewithal yet to do it. But, like I said, I used to think there was a difference, but I've been using them interchangeably for the last couple of years, and I don't see any difference between the Roncinol or the Zippo fuel. Okay. What's up, Will Strikes Again? Will Strikes Again. Glad to have you with us today. If you want to weigh in on the debate of if Zippo lighters are better than Cygnus lighters or any others, you can feel free to do that. I think that a Zippo lighter can stand up to just about any lighter, but to say that it's better, I don't know that it's better than any lighter. Of course, all lighters have their own idiosyncrasies or their own sort of sweet spot. Maybe something that one's good at, the other one's not. I would like to know, though, Will Strikes Again, I don't really have all that much of a collection. Of course, I'm saying that, and all these are sitting right here in front of you are part of my collection, at least right now. This is the main part of my collection, are the Cygnuses. The lighters, the vast majority of the videos that I've made over the last, whatever it's been, when did I create that video, or the YouTube channel? 2018, so 4 or 5 years now. The vast majority of those lighters not only weren't ever in my collection, but they're certainly not anymore. They've been sold. But yes, I'm very fortunate. I'm very blessed to be able to do what I do and to handle a lot of lighters. And, just like we were talking with East Wall earlier about former careers and things we used to do. I don't dread when I wake up in the morning that I'm going to have to go and try to sell people some stamps they don't want, or mumble a bunch of crap that they don't want to hear. Ask them stupid questions about what they're mailing. I'm glad that I wake up every day and I'm able to mess around with these little devices that, you know, they may not seem like much to some people, but man, there's so many nuances, so many different mechanisms, so many different ways that they function, and the ways that they're embellished, and the materials that they're made out of. So yeah, it is. It's a lot of fun. Eastwa says all he is selling is passion. It's funny, man. It is kind of strange to me that. Well, it's not strange because I mean, there's part of me that has wanted to keep every lighter that's gone through my hands. You know, the ashtray. Well, let me go find it. I got it here somewhere. I'm sure of that. Give me just a second. This is a lighter that I bought way back at the very beginning. There's a seller on eBay, and he hasn't listed anything in a while now, but the username is Lightersaurus, and he used to do penny start. He would charge $3 for shipping. He would combine shipping on multiple wins, but he would start all of his auctions off at a penny or 99 cents. Now I think he starts them off at maybe about $5, so not quite as advantageous. And I don't remember how much I paid for this lighter, but it was listed as silver plated table lighter. And I do think it is silver plated, but it is not marked as such or anything. It's what you would typically call a tube lighter or lipstick lighter. Some people would call it a trench lighter. I think a tube or lipstick lighter would probably be most appropriate, but it is fairly unique, at least from the lighters that I have seen. Again, I've only been doing this for 5 years or so, so it's not like I've been looking at lighters for 20, 30. You know, in the case of Ted Ballard, Ted's been collecting lighters since the mid-1940s, so almost 80 years that Ted has been collecting lighters. I obviously don't have that kind of experience under my belt, but you just don't see, I haven't seen another one exactly like this, and I haven't seen many that are even similar. But to have this little ashtray down on the bottom, this one really stuck with me. I had it for sale for a long time, passed on some offers of, I think I had it listed for about $100, and I passed on an offer of $70 at one point. And then at another point, I pulled this out and put it in my collection. And then at another point, I put it back, listed it again. I think it's listed right now. I may be wrong. I may have pulled this back out of those. I can't remember. But that's kind of the conundrum for me. I've wanted to collect every lighter that I ever ran across. I would have loved to have kept that Town and Country Geese Zippo from 1949 or 1950. I would have loved to have kept the 3 or 4 solid silver Dunnhill lighters that I've had. But again, for me, while there has definitely been a spirit of collection take over, and I do accumulate some lighters nowadays. It wasn't so from the beginning. From the beginning, everything was getting sold. Everything. What's up, Scott? Glad that you're with us. Are you talking about, you want a quick recap on what this is, Scott? This is, like I said, I would call that a tube lighter or lipstick lighter. A lot of people would call it a trench lighter. I don't think that's the case. But it's just a basic lighter that you can see even the weld somewhat, the roughness of it, where it is connected to the base. But just a very unique, you'll see other ashtray based lighters, but not quite like this. And you don't see a lot that serve both purposes. Will Strikes Again asks about the Zorro lighters and what we think of them. And Iswa answered that he believes they're Chinese-made, vintage style, modern reproductions, and that's my perception as well. I did own a lighter one time. I can't remember exactly how I came about it. It had the brand Chief on it, and it was a reproduction of the Calibri kickstart mechanism. But that's the only lighter like that, which was a modern product, remanufacturing basically an old mechanism that I've come across. But the Zorro, I think they do all kinds of the old mechanisms, and not just the Zippo clone, but obviously they do Zippo knockoff type lighters as well. For me, they all seem overpriced for what they are. You know, you can get on Amazon right now and buy a brand new produced Ronson branded automatic lighter that looks to be a reproduction of the old, you know, late 1920s to 1940s lighters. But the price on that is so high, I don't know why anybody would want to buy one. I think there's a lot of that kind of stuff that goes on in those Asian factories too, where the branding that comes out of there may not be consistent. And I think that may have always been the case. We've talked about it before. I don't know that this patent 364149 that you see on the Cygnus is an actual working filed patent. I think that may have just been a number they put on there. And I've kind of been suspicious of the same thing when it comes to all kinds of lighters that were made in Japan. Japan back in the day, and then like I said, you can still buy those Ronsons that are being made in Japan, and plenty of other lighters that are being made in Chinese factories nowadays. Well, let us know. Come back and let us know what you think of them, Scott. Are you the Zorro and the Zorro insert? So I'm assuming you're talking about a Zippo type lighter, flip top insert style lighter. Yeah, I hear you, Eastwa, but man, I don't know. The reproduction stuff it does bother me. That you've got designs being reproduced, you know, whether some of those parts might make their way onto older lighters, and I don't know. I mean, I guess that's always possible. You could have people out there making screws to replace on old lighters. There's all kinds of things that could happen, but I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of the reproduction. It's one thing when somebody like Zippo wants to do it and market clearly as such, but like you look at the MCOs, I think they're made in China, and yet they don't say made in China, they say come of Austria. Doesn't say made in Austria, it says come of Austria. I don't know exactly what that means. I mean, I speak English fairly well, so that sounds to me like they're saying it came from Austria, and the design came from Austria, but that lighter itself was manufactured, I think, in China. You talking about Zorro has waterproof Zippo, Sean? Yeah, I saw that. I didn't see that whole video, but I did see that ZF77 Outdoors had that Game Boy, and it looked just like a Game Boy from the thumbnail. Yeah, and I don't know if I wonder if that cap makes much of a difference as far as evaporation. Does it actually snuff the flame? Does it fit down over the insert? Like say, what was it? The Orlick. The Orlick was the original lighter. I think that may have been the one that Zippo was based off of. Okay, they have a rubber seal. Yeah, I guess it is still better than disposable lighters. Yeah, I would agree with that. It'd be better. But man, some of those reproductions are, I mean, that brand new Ronson Standard that's on Amazon is like $60 or $70. You can easily go find you a Ronson that you can refurbish for less than that. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you, Swab. But I don't really look at most lighter repairs beyond most people. You know, if you can change your own oil, if you know, if you can cook your own meals, if you can wash your own clothes, those kind of things, you should probably be able to do a little bit of maintenance on a lighter. Yeah, Scott, you should do that, man. I would encourage, um, if you've got lighters and you've got the desire to make vintage lighter content or petrol lighter content, even butane lighter content, we need more of that too. I'm not going to make it, but I would be appreciative if somebody else, could make that stuff a little bit more, um, accessible to me. Maybe not quite hurt my head so much when I think about it. Eastwall, what's the newest lighter that you have in your collection? Yeah, you're right. You're right. There's a lot. It's difficult, especially with electronics. But yeah, the apparel and all that. Yeah, I know. It's a lot cheaper for that stuff to be produced in China. 2010 Saint DuPont or ST DuPont with a jet flame. That's cool. Now, what do you guys consider to be vintage? I used to think that in order for it to be vintage, it had to be older than me. But myself being 51 years old now, I think that I don't think it has to be 51 to be vintage. I think probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 20, 25 years will qualify it as vintage. Hello, Loden Hatcher. Glad that you are with us. If you have a question, ask away. You say anything before 1970 is vintage. I agree with you there. Of course, I was born in 1971. I've kind of come around to the point that I think just about any Zippo that doesn't have a number on that right side. So in other words, if it's got um, the Roman numerals, which would have been, I think, before the year 2000. I could be wrong about that. I think 2000 was when that changed. I could be wrong. I know that in the year 2000 it had a Roman numeral and the year 2000. I know 2002 and 2003 they were putting the year rather than the Roman numeral. So that's kind of where I draw it at now. I think if it was 15 years old and you said, a vintage 2008 Zippo, I think that's technically correct because I think the word vintage is actually tied to the year. I think the origin of the word come from being used with grapes or wine. So, like I said, I think if you used it in that way, you could possibly, but I don't have any problem with anybody. I think that 20 years or so old, I think you can probably safely call that vintage. But I think it's important, if you can, to always include the year, or at least as close as you can. It's easy to do that with Zippos, not so much with other stuff. Yeah, and see, I would consider that at this point, NAFTA, that is almost 25 years old. And that's something that Gavin Lannon and I were talking about when he sent that big box of Tobacciana and Zippos, because there were 3 or 4 Zippos in there, and well, I already auctioned one of them off for HDSA, Huntington's Disease Society of America, which we haven't talked about that recently, and I haven't really listed anything since right before Christmas time. I've still got 20 or so listings there that have been up for a while. But anything that you buy from the dependableflame.com eBay store, any of our listings that you purchase, at least 10% of that is going to go to HDSA, Huntington's Disease Society of America, which is a disease that killed my father and had a big impact on my life, that disease. I'm very thankful that I do not have it. I was tested for it back in 2017, right after my father passed, and I do not carry that gene. Well, we all carry the gene, but I don't have the repeat in that gene that would cause me to have that disease. So anyway, we do every purchase, every listing, 10% goes to HDSA, and then we also have those feature listings which we haven't done in a while. The last one we did was that 1997 Zippo that Gavin had sent us, and those listings, and those will be clearly marked. Those 100% of those listings, those penny start auctions that we do, go to that charity. So Eastwa, you say for a lighter, you would put it at 20 to 30 years for vintage. But for a computer, yeah. Yeah, I guess 10 years for a computer would be ancient. Would be, yeah, that's kind of crazy. Computer is just about obsolete by the time you bought it. But yeah, I would agree with you. I think 20, 30 years is enough. And obviously not as well defined a term as, say, antique. I think we all understand antique well enough that, you know, we know that that's 100 years old. In order for something to be an antique in 2023, then it needs to have been made in 1923 or before that. Otherwise, it's not an antique. It might be close, but it's got to be 100 years old to be considered an antique. Well, you never know, Scott. You say you have a YouTube channel. What is, I guess I can just search your, do you already have any content up? What kind of content are you creating for that YouTube channel? You know, it's one thing that comes into play when you're creating content for different places on the internet. And like for a website, like my website, dependableflame.com, it all needs to kind of fit in the same niche. But for a YouTube channel, they don't really put those kind of parameters on you for how that YouTube channel is going to function. You can publish lighter content all day and then just throw out something else the next day, and you know, if people watch it, they watch it. If they don't, they don't. But now you might upset your audience by throwing some of that stuff out there. And that's one reason why I typically publish what I call vintage petrol lighters, ashtrays, tobacciana, and other useful mechanisms. I publish those kind of videos Monday through Friday. And then occasionally, you know, there are other subjects, some that we talk about and some that we don't, that I cover on the website. But Huntington's disease, the HDSA organization, which supports those with the disease, cannabis, something that I talk about on the website, not something that I have really talked about here on the YouTube channel. But also I've done some other videos. I've talked on the channel and written on the website about alcoholism, which I'll probably be doing more of that in the future. And also I published a video or two of cooking with ingredients that are not as harmful for you as carbs and sugar. So that's something that you may see in the future. But like I said, I usually do that on a weekend. If I'm going to publish a video talking about alcoholism or a cooking video or something like that, that's going to be on a Saturday. And I don't really see anything wrong with that. I could be wrong. The Professor's Garage, which is for whatever I want to do, and then you say your first channel is Shave Up, which is traditional. Very interesting. Take it easy, Eastwall. Glad that you've joined us. Hopefully we will see you again next week. And everybody needs to get over to TikTok and check out Eastwall doing Flam's videos over there. I think he publishes one every day. And he's also posted a few videos to YouTube recently. So excellent content, and it seems that he has no shortage of subjects for that content. So I look forward to seeing Eastwall's videos every notification that I get. Now, when you say wet shaving, Scott, are we talking about like a straight razor? Or does that include just any kind of shaving with when you're using shaving cream and water? Of course, Eastwall, I appreciate your support as well. And I very much appreciate these conversations and the camaraderie that we can all share here. But it's easy to support your videos, my friend, when they're such high quality and such excellent content. And I've mentioned this before. I pretty much I don't follow back everybody that follows me on um, everybody that subscribes to my channel. I don't even see all of those. It all depends on how their settings are made. But whether they follow me or not, if somebody is posting lighter content at all, but especially vintage lighter content and especially vintage Petrol lighters, then I'm going to follow them. Even if they've only posted a video or two, if that's their intent is they're going to post lighter content, then I'm following them. Straight razor, safety razor, shaving brush, shaving soap, mustache wax, shave. Very interesting. Okay, I'll check that out, Scott. It's I don't shave much here the last couple months, but I got a little bit of experience with a lot of that stuff you're talking about. Always been kind of curious about mustache wax. Used plenty of beard oil and stuff like that, but I've never used any mustache wax. You talking about Iswa, Asriel, that he has all the lighters and all the catalogs? He does, man. I love how he ties that all together, and he always either pulls it in to tie it in with the catalog or with the patent right there on the screen, and the flints and the old the flint, not just the flints that he's using, but the containers that the flints are in, the fuel and fuel containers. It's all a very enjoyable process. Yeah, that's something, Iswa, that I think is hard for most people to really get a handle on, is how many manufacturers of lighters there were. Um, I think it's very possible, and I mean I have made a job out of this, and like I've said many times, I intend to do it as long as the Lord will let me. And I'm 50 years old. That could easily be another 25 years. It could easily be or maybe not easily. It could be another 50 years. Who knows? Like I said, Ted Ballard, he's been collecting lighters now for almost 80 years, and the guy's he's in his late 80s or early 90s. So I could have a good number of years left, and however many that is, I look forward to messing with old lighters. But I don't have any kind of delusions that I'll ever reach the end, that I'll ever have worked on all of them, or have ever done a show and tell video for all of them, or anything like that. There's this is a hobby, or a job, whatever you want to call it, that could easily last for a lifetime, just trying to find everything that has been produced. Yeah, I agree with you, Azrael. I think that I didn't mention the music a while ago, but that is another key part of Eastwall's videos, is how he, in a very entertaining fashion, uses music to accentuate a certain point in the video as it's actuated or snuffed or whatever. Um, it's all very witty and catchy and entertaining for sure. Yeah, that's the kind of information that you're gaining on a daily basis, though, Eastwa. You never know. Um, I understand exactly what you're saying. I'm no expert on all these things. I'm still pretty much a novice at, especially the history of them and all that kind of stuff. But if you look at the words that I've written over on my website, dependableflame.com, it is somewhere in the neighborhood of 100,000 words, which would be the equivalent of a small book. But, that's also been written one article or 1,000 to 1,500 words at a time. And I think that for me personally, it's more about documenting and talking about my own impressions and my own affinities for different lighters. Because there's always, it wouldn't matter what lighter I were to focus on, there's always going to be somebody that's a bigger expert on that particular lighter than I am. But I do have a pretty good knowledge, just a pretty good working knowledge of basic lighters as well. So, Asriel, Eastwall had a video a couple weeks ago, or a couple days ago, where he said he wanted you to witness the last 2 years of collecting in 1 minute. And I think that's what he told us last week or the week before that, was that he's been collecting for a couple of years. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you, Eastwall. And there are. You'll talk to some people like that. You'll also talk to some people that purport to know everything and know very little. But yeah, it's always nice. That's one thing I like about the Facebook lighter groups. And I don't know, we haven't really talked much about Facebook on here. But, and I don't know how that, I'm friends with plenty of people from other countries on Facebook. I don't know, there's probably a group of about 20 people or so that I'm friends with now that's how we became acquainted. They're my Facebook lighter friends. And I've talked about some of them. Some of them, Bill Calkins is one of those people. He was with us last week. J. Rowe, John Roth, J. Rowe Lights. My friend Donald Hine, who runs the website lighterfix.dk. He repairs butane lighters and some other Petrol lighters, stuff like that. We've done some trades. So anyway, there's a good camaraderie in that group of people too, and in those groups, and you see all those same people in those groups, and there are plenty of knowledgeable, people who have seen lighters so often firsthand that it's not like they had to memorize the information. They just know it because they've been exposed to it so much. Guys like Rob Giaretta, there's just not very many things that get asked about a Zippo that he doesn't know the answer to. So anyway, that's something for you guys to consider. Is I don't know if you participate in the Facebook lighter groups. There are all kinds of them over there. OTLS has a lighter group. Zippo Addicts. DependableFlame.com has a page and a group. I would love for you all to join both of those. And I post stuff over there on a regular basis. But there are others, Lighters of the World, the vintage Zippo and Vintage Lighter Deal or No Deal. There's all kinds of. Just type in vintage lighters or Zippo, and then next thing you know, you join a few of those groups, and they'll start suggesting other groups to you. And it's a really interesting. Your friends and family may not understand why you have such an affinity for all these tiny pieces of art. But I guarantee you there are people over there in those Facebook lighter groups, just like there are here on YouTube, who get it perfectly. They understand, they're going to be there, they want you to show off your lighters, they want to talk about them, and, it's all good fun. Ah, okay. I didn't realize you had removed that. I'm glad I got to see it before you removed it then. Yeah, Eastwall says all his money goes into lighters. And pretty much all my discretionary income goes to lighters. It's just, I don't buy anything that's not a great deal. And I typically buy things, like you said there, in lots. But it seems like it's harder and harder. It seems like there's more and more competition on individual lighters. Those people, we were talking about the Cellar Lighter Source that used to do those 99-cent start auctions. Bill Calkins does those as well. 99 cents and then like $5 shipping, and he'll combine. I don't think I have bought anything from him yet, but I keep an eye on his auctions on a regular basis. But those are all good fun, low start auctions where here and there you can really get a good deal. But the main way that you can really find cool lighters without paying what they're worth is by knowing what's what when it comes to old lighters and being able to identify them in a bigger group in maybe just one or two photos. You can spot them when the seller didn't take the time to identify what they were. Yeah, I hear you. That's how I found most of my Cygnuses, is in groups of lighters. This green one was in a group, and like I said, I forgot to bid, and the lot went unbid. It was like, I can't even remember. It seemed like a dozen or so lighters, and there was I think they were asking, it was like a $19.99 starting bid, and then maybe a few dollars for shipping. It went without a bid the first time, and I felt just sick. I messaged them, let them know if they had relisted, I would definitely bid on it. And of course, they relisted it, and there was competition the next time, and I ended up. I don't think it was over $25, $26 then plus the shipping. And like I said, with the other lighters that were in it, once they were sold, I figure I don't even remember what other lighters were in there, but for such a low cost, there's not much doubt in my mind that I got this lighter for free. Same thing with this one with the fancy scrolling engraving on it. And actually, when I bought it, it did not have a fill screw. So that was how I purchased it. No fuel screw. And so I don't even know for sure that this is a Cygnus. But as I said before, if it's not, we do have a Prince, a Le Briquette at Sea, and a Cornwall branded lighter. So it could have been another brand. I did see another lighter like this in another group of lighters that just went for more than I was willing to spend here in the last year. And that one bothered me a little bit because I really, really wanted to get my hands on it. But I've always been a bargain buyer. I've always been a salvage type guy. I don't buy new. Typically when it's new, I'm just not going to be able to afford it. So I have no problem with that. However, that I can acquire them, we've talked before, there's a couple of Cygnuses listed right now on eBay for extraordinary prices, and they're lighters that I don't have, that I would love to put in my collection. But for that price, it doesn't bother me one bit. I don't lose any sleep over it. I'm not envious of the owner or, sit up at night trying to figure out ways that I can come up with that money. If it's out of my price range, then it's just out of my price range. Somebody let me know if the sound is working, because I just had to hang up on another call that was coming through. If it did knock out the microphone, it didn't knock out the picture like it did a while ago, at least from where I am seeing it. So I don't know if you guys could hear me there for a minute. There was another phone call. Sound is working? Cool. All right. I'm going to have to figure that out to where I don't have calls coming through there when I'm doing a live stream. That Cornwall, see, most of those have a paper type gasket. That Cornwall has a rubber gasket on it. And that lighter is very similar to this silver tone with the dragon motif. And I don't know if the dragon had paint on it at one point or not. Both have hobnail design on the back. Both have a plate attached. Both have knurled rollers. But this one is marked Cornwall. Yeah, that emerald green is what I've called it. I think that's a beautiful color myself. Definitely one of my favorite, and the one that sort of kick-started me into collecting Cygnuses when I found that one. I love finding the advertisers, and I've got several advertisers that are really cool. That one that I traded for, I think I traded some Zippo boxes for that one with Mr. Champion on Facebook. I've made several trades over there in Facebook, the DependableFlame.com Facebook group. Yeah, that's a good point, Naphtha. Plenty of people don't mind grabbing that Bic, whether they're there at the 7-Eleven or on cue or wherever it is that they're picking up their smokes, and then they're going to lose it later that night. And the real sad part, you know, is how many of those plastic lighters are produced, and the way that plastic is, the fumes or whatever that come off of, supposedly it's horrible for the environment when it's being produced, and then the tool never actually get used. Or like when we were testing out these old disposable plastic lighters, you know, the gas had already leaked out of them before they ever even had a chance to get used. You know, I'm actually appreciative that eBay adds that tax the way that it's done here in America, Sean, because otherwise I got to go in and figure that out all myself, which used to be, you just had to do it for, like in the state of Oklahoma, I only had to pay the sales tax when it was sold to an address here in Oklahoma. So I'd have to remember that. If I sold something to Oklahoma, I'd have to go report it. And I'd have to report all the total sales, but only have to pay the sales tax on the ones being delivered here in Oklahoma. Where now you pay it for all of them, and it's what is called platform administrative fees or something like that. Excuse me. In other words, eBay goes ahead and figures out the tax on every item and just goes ahead and takes it out. Platform facilitated, I think, is what the term was. Anyway, yeah, those along with the fees can add up, but it hasn't added up to the point. Occasionally I'll even sell something that goes through a sponsored or promoted listing because of being a I forget what they call it. The highest rated seller. If you're not high, what do they call that? I can't remember the term on eBay, but if you're top rated seller, then you get those promoted listings for free. They reimburse you what those promoted listings cost. Well, here lately I've dipped down out of that top ranked seller because I haven't sold enough items in the last year to qualify, and so I paid for a couple of those promoted listings, and it's kind of unfortunate, that I'm paying eBay for like 20, well, it was 10% on one of them that I sold for a couple $100 here a few weeks ago. A little bit unfortunate that seller didn't just click on the regular listing than the promoted listing, but either way, it's still advantageous to me. I see a lot of people complain about those fees, and they might be worse in other countries, I don't know, but I kind of like the simplified way that it's all moved to, and to where they don't even go through, thanks ZDF, top rated, where it doesn't go through PayPal. Used to, everything went through PayPal. Now all those payments are facilitated through eBay themselves, which creates a little bit of a blind situation where you're mailing it before you actually have the cash, where that didn't happen with PayPal. But I have had no problem with any payment that's happened. That's been going on now. I think that was 2 years ago when they made me go over to the eBay facilitated payments. Yeah, that does sound a little high. Another reason why it's all, I had that all set up to where, like I was talking about earlier, the 10% of every listing that goes to the HDSA charity, and then the 100% of the penny start auctions that goes to the HDSA charity. That's all facilitated through the PayPal for Charity donation. So, yeah. There may be, I'm sure there's a way or two that all those changes have made it better for those companies rather than the seller, but I think it's still fair enough as long as, like you say, the fees that they are levying for your country, as long as they're not biting into too much of your profit. Yeah, that's polymerized formaldehyde. I can still distinctly smell the scent of formaldehyde in my nose from junior high school science class, from dissecting, I don't remember, I'm sure we dissected a frog, maybe a rat, maybe a baby pig or something. I can't remember. But it was more than one thing that we dissected in science class, and I can still feel the stench of that in my nose. Well, Sean, I've talked about that before, and you can go over and read about it on the website, and there's even some videos up where I talk about Huntington's disease. But it's a disease that killed my father, and he was diagnosed with it in 2010, I believe, and 2017 when he passed. And there were a good number of years there before there that things were going on, and he was misdiagnosed. But it's just a horrible disease, and for most of those families that deal with it, they deal with it generation after generation after generation. And I am extremely blessed and thank God the Father, my Lord Jesus Christ, every day that I don't have to deal with that disease anymore. And my brother tested negative as well, so at least as far as my dad's family goes, it ends with us, or it ended with him. It won't pass on to us, which therefore, because it didn't pass on to us, then it can't pass on to our children or future generations after that. But for so many, it's a disease that they deal with. It's so ugly, and it literally robs a person of. My dad was most capable person I've ever met. I've talked a lot about what I do here with cigarette lighters and how much he would have enjoyed that. He never found an engine he didn't want to work on. He was just kind of the kind of guy he was. It was what he liked to do. But as that disease progressed, he couldn't figure out how to tie his own shoes and 1,000 other things that he did without any problem before that. So, upon finding out that I didn't have the disease, that was, I don't know, shortly 6 months or so before I started the DependableFlame.com website, and just a few months before I started working with lighters, in general. And that, like I said, the proximity of time that had passed, I just couldn't, when I found out that I was negative, I just couldn't imagine not doing anything, just walking away and ignoring this disease that had been such a big part of my life for the last 7 years before that. And to be honest, a disease that I had already pretty much convinced myself I had, and that, was a big factor in my alcoholism continuing the way it did for so long. And, it just seemed like there was nothing to look forward to, and such a horrible diagnosis, and here I didn't even have it. But we do, like I said, everything that you buy, every eBay listing, 10% is going to go to that charity. And then those penny start auctions, which hopefully I can get started back up again, 100% of those goes to the HDSA charity. Yeah, it's a strange deal, but yeah, I'm glad I don't have it either, Sean. Um, it's hard to know what to say about it sometimes, and I'm certainly there's not a whole lot I can do to say to help those families that are going through it. But I can do what I can do. If you're hearing something that sounds like grasshoppers, it is probably the fire alarm at a neighboring apartment complex here in Deep Deuce. I don't know why it's so hard. In the wintertime, these alarms go off all the time. And it'll happen in this complex as well, but there's one just north of here where it seems like it happens at some point every day. Well, I appreciate all you guys joining us this morning, and we will convene again next Tuesday morning for sure. Hopefully I can find something interesting to talk about, and hopefully you all will join in again. maybe Dylan DePie will join us again and come up with another trade offer for the Zippo Scrimshaw. If any of you guys have plastic boxes that you're willing to trade, like I said, they don't have to be the cream color. I know these cream color boxes are a little bit more scarce, maybe a lot more scarce. But I'm looking for any of them that I can use in my rotating Zippo display. And those plastic boxes are pretty easy to clean up. And, you know, we've talked before about my aversion to paper. That's another. This is the Le Briquette at Sea, which I consider to be Cygnus adjacent. But that thumb screw or fuel screw doesn't have a spare flint compartment or gasket. I think that may be the only one I don't have that, or the only one I have that doesn't have a gasket on the fuel screw. Which you guys know how I feel about that. I don't know how important those fuel screws or those gaskets are on those fuel screws to begin with. That's the kind they usually have though, is that, I don't know, kind of a coated paper. And I don't know, there's plenty of them that don't have the spare flint compartment. Make sure that you tell your friends. If you enjoy coming here and hanging out on Tuesday talking about lighters, let them know so that they can contribute to the conversation. Make sure that you hit the like button there, thumbs up, whatever you call it. You might even share it. Send it to your friends in a text or email or however you do that. You can always go back and watch these after the fact. Take care, Naphtha. I'm glad that you're with us this week, as you are most weeks. Scott, glad that you joined us. Yeah, and I'd be, you don't have to mention me, but I'd love to see any lighter content that you get, man. Like I said, the more the better. And I follow everybody. Y'all can go over there and look at the channels that I follow. And there's plenty there that are vintage lighter channels, or like I said, what is it, Lighter 2018 that repairs butane lighters. There are plenty of them, but you know, there really aren't there aren't any huge channels. You know, everybody down here, well, the old Zippo Fanatic 77 channel, that one now has probably 13,000 followers or subscribers. But all the others are, you know, down 2,000-3,000 at the most. Plenty of room for growth when it comes to the vintage lighter community here on YouTube. Until next time.